Question. Order. Question number 6. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Speaker, this question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by all his statements? If so, how?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, and by celebrating my birthday by having such a wonderful working relationship with the member.
Oh, so he's become delusional as well, eh? He's become totally delusional all of a sudden.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Prime Minister, in Northland, which of the 10 double-lane bridges he promised is under construction? How many metres of the Puhoi Walkworth Highway promised 7 years ago, or metres of the Walkworth Wilsford Highway promised 17 months ago have been constructed? And how many cell towers have been built as promised by Stephen Joyce and himself 17 months ago?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have all of those details with me, but if the member spent a bit more time going around his electorate, he'd probably see it.
That's the problem, I can't see them.
Order.
Supplementary question.
And I'll have the supplementary question. Supplementary question.
How does he explain? I've been there more times in 1 month than the whole time he's been the MP for Helensville, mate.
Order.
That's a fact.
Order.
And that's a fact.
Order. I don't need the interjections to assist the order of the House from the right-hand side with the Minister now. A member like to ask
thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question.
How does the Prime Minister explain his 2008 policy of, quotes, more police on the beat, end of quotes, has many fewer police on the beat per capita right now than there were when he made the promise?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I know the member struggles a bit with maths, but 600 more police is 600 more police officers on the beat, not to mention the changes in technology, which has seen an additional about 300 extra police in terms of hours that they spend on the beat. There are more police officers in New Zealand and more of them working on the beat.
Supplementary question, David Seymour.
Were any of those new police on the beat immigrants, perchance?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, we like to draw from all sorts of New Zealanders from different backgrounds to be part of the police force. In fact, in the Diplomatic Protection Force, I noted the other day, just to the group that was with me, that all 3 of them had come from the United Kingdom and were there providing great service to New Zealand. And I'm sure they would be police officers that Winston Peters, I'm sure, would support in his open policy of migration in New Zealand.
None of that boring crap. Supplementary question, Speaker.
Well, if the member wants one, just lead into it. Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does he think that his government is providing Northern Police with the resources when the total number of burglaries in 2008 to 2015 was 17,319, with an arrest rate of 3%?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if one looks at the crime rate in New Zealand overall, it's been falling. And Mr. Speaker, this is a government that committed to having more police officers. There are 600 more. There's been greater technology available to police officers to allow them to do their job more easily. And as I said this morning, over time, as the population grows, the government's committed to increasing police numbers.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Why hasn't his government given the Northland Police the resources to deal with a crime rate increase of over 66% from these police figures given to us since he's been the Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker,
The Right Honourable Prime
my
Minister.
understanding, although the member might want to directly ask the Minister of Police, that extra police have been earmarked for Northland. We've added extra resources already this year, and a further 6 will be added soon.
Speaker, point of order. Could I
Point of order, Right Honourable Winston
seek
Peters.
leave the table letter dated 2nd of August from the police themselves with background information verifying the questions today?
Order. Can the member just describe it again to the benefit of the House?
All
Then
right,
I'll put
Mr.
the
Speaker,
lead.
it's a letter dated the 2nd of August from the police. Then events selected by type, code, closure result, code and year, Northland, pages of that, and including the, well, there's so many crimes up there, but
Order.
they're all in
I'll
this
put
list
the
down
leave
here.
and the House, if it's tabled, then be able to decide what it's about exactly. Leave is sought to table that particular letter dated 2nd of August. Is there any objection?
Yes, he's mumbling it.
There is objection. There is objection. Order. 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 This is the point of order. I wish to hear it in silence.
Speaker, apparently Mr Brownlee demurs on the basis that he couldn't hear what I was saying,
Order.
not knowing for diction himself.
Nobody has to give a reason to denying leave. Leave is put. Any member has a right to deny it. It has been denied. Question number 7, Todd Barclay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.